Hi friends and companions along this path of spiritual practice. Case number 29 from the Mumungan collection of Zen koans. One day the temple flag was flapping in the wind and two monks were engaged in a heated argument. One monk saying, "It is the flag that is moving." The second monk saying, "No, it is the wind that is truly moving." And they went back and forth, unable to agree on the truth, when the Zen teacher interrupted their argument and said, "It is not the wind that is moving. It is not the flag that is moving. It is mind that is moving." And the two monks were struck in wonder. This koan might strike us initially as quite simple. We might argue that rather than being one-sided, the two monks are both correct. Both the flag and the wind are moving. But then as we stay with the koan and we become more curious, we start asking, what is it that the monks are really arguing about? Might it involve the question of causality, that the flag is actually not the agent of movement? The flag is only moving because the wind, the truer source, cause of movement, the wind is moving. But then the first monk might argue back and counter, well, okay, if the wind is the more real source of movement, what is it that makes the wind move? And so on and so forth. From proximate cause to the real cause. And maybe they are talking about the same thing that Aristotle wondered about, that St. Thomas Aquinas wondered about, that maybe we can question our way and find an unmoved mover. Maybe the two monks are asking about that question of causality. This is when Zen Buddhism reminds us that we never have the whole picture. We only have a proximate cause, a partial knowledge. And you and I can agree that a partial knowledge is as complete a knowledge as we will ever have, that is dependent on the condition. And maybe that's when you and I begin to feel uncomfortable whenever we hear someone say, well, it sort of depends. We want a truth that doesn't have to depend. We want the whole absolute truth that does not have to depend on any context. We want some sort of a propositional, static, absolute truth. When Zen argues for a living truth, and a living truth will always have to acknowledge, well, it depends. But we don't want it to depend. We want ourselves not to have to depend on the context. We want to be able to subsist, to claim something independent of context. Maybe that's what the Zen master is trying to get at when he says, it is not the wind that is moving, it is not the flag that is moving, it is mind that is moving. Our mind that as soon as we take our seat for meditation practice, flits from one thing to the next thing, constantly moving from one thing to the next thing. Or our mind that is flapping and being whipped about from one opinion, one argument to the next, contradicting ourselves from what we just said a moment ago. And maybe you and I want to think that there is a mind that is not moving. But Buddhism does not know such a mind. It is the nature of mind to be impermanent, to change, to move. Rather, what Buddhism is interested in is what moves our mind. To take our seat and to practice and to attend to noticing what causes our mind to move. Buddhism posits that there are three elemental forces: greed, hatred, and ignorance. Zen more commonly argues that it is our fundamental ignorance that gives even rise to greed and hatred. Ignorance that is our willful ignoring of things, denial of things that we would rather not pay attention to. Our fundamental self-delusion about who and what we are. Friends, as we take our seat, we become increasingly familiar with this fundamental ignorance or delusion that shapes how we see and understand the movement of the world and of ourselves, of our discomfort at realizing that we are contingent, that we are utterly dependent on context. It really does depend. And so, can we bring this medicine called attention to seeing as much as we are able to see of the context upon which we are dependent? For what else would love seek to do other than to see as fully as we can of the context of the other upon whom we depend? And so, friends, we continue with our spiritual practice.